Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode number 221 of the Canadian Football Countdown, and proud member of the Canadian Football Podcast Network. Ryan, Adam, and Trey here this evening, bringing you our Week 10 CFL preview. We'll take a look at the major matchup storylines, the fantasy players to watch, and our betting picks for each of the games this week. We'll also touch on some breaking news from around the CFL off the top of the show. We are live as well on a variety of different platforms, our YouTube, Twitch, Facebook, and Twitter pages, thanks to our presenting sponsor, Game Time TV, which you can learn more about by visiting GameTimeTV.ca. If you're joining us live, send your comments and questions in the live chat. We'll take a look at them. We'll read them off. We'll respond to them. Let us know if you have any questions you want us to answer throughout the show by putting them in there. Before we go any further, we also do want to acknowledge that the Canadian Football Countdown is brought to you from Treaty 1 territory, traditional territory of the Anishinaabe, Cree, Ojibwe, Dakota, and Dene peoples, and the homeland of the Métis Nation, as well as from Treaty 4 territory, traditional territory of the Cree, Saulteaux, Dakota, Lakota, Nakota, and Métis Nation. Now let's bring in the rest of our panel this evening. I'm Ryan. I'm joined first off by a man, you never know where he's going to be when he's recording a podcast. Is he at his desk? Is he on his couch? Is he on top of a combine? Where is he today? The great Adam Stewart. Adam, how are you doing today?
Well, I'm not on a combine or my office, but I'm still on a couch because, my monitor gave out last week and I haven't had a chance to go look for one yet. So once I get a chance, I'll go do that. But in the meantime, you get to put up with my famous blue couch.
Right on. And joining us here this evening as well, a man who's never afraid to pull out the whiteboard even when his team's up 29 points. Is the great Trey Colbeck. How are you doing today?
I was going to say, Adam, is that the second most famous couch on the internet? But anyway, yeah, my whiteboard's behind me. I don't want to see any more double fake reverses from any team in this league this year. That was the most brutal thing I've ever seen. I made my point on Adam's talk show yesterday. My name's for I can't remember, but someone in the Discord was even like, "You guys are complaining being up 30." Yes, when you do that garbage, yes, like that. Oh man. Anyway, that's something from Longest Yard when they're playing in the mud, in the prison yard there. So I don't want to see it. But yeah, I'm here today. Man, I'm tired, so let's get some stuff going here. I had my one vacation day kind of today. I had like one kind of day off, and I spent it at the beach, and I hate beaches. So that's kind of what I'm at right now.
So you're saying that double reverse was just some schoolyard BS, like they would say in the old Longest Yard, eh?
Oh, yeah. Like, only Adam Sandler and all those guys can make a play like that happen.
At least go triple. If you're going to go double reverse, go at least triple reverse. Right? Just keep it going.
Triple reverse with a flea flicker.
Fajardo, Caleros is one of the least athletic looking guys out there. Like, Mahomes would have did, like, so there's a bunch of guys that could have made that look sick. Caleros is just like, I don't know. Anyway, whatever.
Well, if you want to hear about Trey drawing up plays on the whiteboard, if you want to hear any of our other additional content as well, check out our Discord community. Also, by the way, we've got live game chats going for every game every week. Lots of fantasy content there. We've got people throwing prop bets out, and we've even got a bonus live episode every week. Normally, it's Mike and I on the drive home call-in show. We were away on vacation yesterday, so Adam recorded a nice little recap of week number 9. From on top of the combine. So kudos to you, Adam, for stepping in and doing that. Thanks for doing that yesterday. And if anybody wants to check that out, it's you can catch the audio replay in our audio podcast feeds there as well. Before we get into previewing the games from here tonight, guys, we did get some breaking news from the team that is on a bye this week, which is the Hamilton Tiger Cats. And the news is that Tommy Condell has mutually parted ways with the Ticats, their offensive coordinator. Scott Milanovic, he's been on the staff as an advisor. He's going to take over the play calling now going forward. And my super quick response to this is it's about dang time. We've been calling for Condell to lose his job here because his play calling has been just stale and brutal and not effective for quite some time now. I think it wasn't effective last year with Dane Evans. I think it wasn't effective this year. so far with all of the quarterbacks they've had there. You've taken a couple of big name receivers like Duke Williams and Tim White and rendered them almost non-existent in that offense at times. I'm super happy to see them make this move on the bye week. I think having an offensive mind like Milanovic is going to be huge for that Ticats offense, and hopefully huge for the likes of a guy like James Butler, who's playing well, just not getting all the touches he should. What do you guys think quickly on Hamilton making this move here, Trey?
What does Shania Twain say? I got to go up from here. I guess so. Like that's right. Like up. I guess that's all. I don't know. It's a very interesting move. I guess it was time, but like I guess Milanovic. I've never been a fan of his. I know a lot of people like him. I just personally haven't been. But hey, let's see how it goes. Adam.
I think he must have got let go because he was going crazy. Because in the last few weeks, I mean, James Butler actually has done some a little bit of stuff going on. Has had some stuff going on lately. So I don't know if they just let him go because he was changing his ideas. I doubt it. They wanted to use James Butler more, I think, and. I mean, you look at what they bring in. Scott Milanovic, he's a very good quarterback kind of coach. He does very well with young quarterbacks. So that having a guy like Taylor Powell in there right now is probably a real benefit to have Scott Milanovic there. The only thing I never like about an offensive coordinator going in the middle of a season is you then need to learn a new playbook pretty much because the new offensive coordinator have a different playbook than what you're used to with Tommy Condell and the longtime Tiger Cats. Again, Tim White and those guys like that are going to eventually, they got to learn a new playbook again. So could be a little bit of an adjustment. They will definitely be firing on all cylinders after a little while. I'll tell you that. Milanovic does not take losing lightly. So I think that the Ticats are better for this. It was time. And I think that this whole team is going to get blown up in the offseason no matter what. We'll see how far it gets blown up, though, when we get to the offseason.
Yeah, and it's a guy you had on staff already, too, in Milanovic, so the coach's cap doesn't come into an issue here, too, right? That's I think, a big reason you make this move. You probably don't if you don't have him on staff already.
Yeah, and the other thing is with it is that's why I don't like this coach's cap. Again, it's a guy that's been a quarterback's coach or an offensive coordinator or a head coach, again, in the CFL before. You're not allowing new talent, new coaching talent to come into this league very easy, right? I mean, if you don't have that coaching cap right now, you could easily bring in another guy that maybe from the U.S., an NFL guy that has maybe NFL caliber, maybe had some NCAA caliber and do it fairly easily. Now you got to worry about dollars and cents and all that, and you ruin the fun out of maybe getting a new coordinator and somebody that could be new and exciting for this league. So it's kind of recycling stale, and I don't like that. That being said, Scott Milanovic is a great coach. So it was a good choice for what you can do, but in another way, boy, I'd love to see some new coaches.
I got a whiteboard. I'm free. I'm available.
I give it like 3 weeks tops before Condell has some other job in the CFL because the same coaches bounce around everywhere, and I don't know what kind of role it will be. It might not be in a coordinator role, but I wouldn't be surprised to see him land somewhere.
Actually, that's interesting. When was it last year when Kahari went as an advisor somewhere? Right, he went. Does that count as salary cap? Or a coach's cap? Because I wonder if that's a sneaky way of getting him in your organization, and maybe I could see him going that way.
To me, it works, but again, if you want to bring somebody in, it just sucks that you can't do it when you want to do it. I mean, you look at my team. I mean, Saskatchewan pretty much is almost. I don't want to say being held hostage because he's had a good game last week, but been held hostage. I mean, to having to have guys in the football ops that maybe they don't want. They made one change because they could, otherwise they can't really afford to. So it sucks, and I really don't like the coach's cap, and I will never like the coach's cap. And let's move on because we got a lot of things to talk about tonight.
Yeah, agreed. And we'll talk obviously more about what this means for the Ticats when we get to our preview the following week for them there. But first game of this week has some interesting storylines here as well. We've got Winnipeg heading to Edmonton on Thursday night. Edmonton coming off the bye, obviously here. Game is at 9 p.m. Eastern time. Adam, what are the big storylines here? I think I know what they are, but why don't you tell us?
Well, Winnipeg, I mean, it's a whole lot of nothing, to be honest with you, because this is kind of a weird situation in Winnipeg. They never changed a single player from their depth chart from the last week. You don't see anybody different. You don't see any changes. And when you win by 50, unless you do a double reverse into otherwise you don't make no changes. I mean, if you would have nailed the double reverse, you don't make no changes if you're the Winnipeg Blue Bombers right now. You just finished pounding the BC Lions into the ground. And now you're playing the Edmonton Elks, who I think the big thing we got to talk a little bit about is two things. One, it's a new offensive coordinator in town. Jarius Jackson now takes over as the Edmonton Elks head coach, or not head coach, takes over as the offensive coordinator.
Not yet.
Not yet. Yeah, keyword I should put there. Not yet. So first things first, give me your thoughts about Jarius Jackson taking over as OC over in Edmonton. Trey?
Sorry, I muted myself there. Kind of indifferent again, because I kind of think it's the same thing as in Hamilton, where you're just getting a guy who's already in the system just because you can't do anything because of salary cap. And I'm sure Chris Jones takes up 90% of that, right? So it's real hard to do. But again, it's fresh ideas, new things. God, and Edmonton needs new things. Oh my God. And I'm really interested. And I wonder what kind of connection this guy has with Trey Ford, right? A little bit more than the other past people have, because I wonder if that played into it. But I also think we're talking about salary cap. You're paying Cornelius $400,000 roughly, and now he's sitting on your bench, and you got Trey Ford on a Canadian rookie contract probably. I know that's football, next man up, but just a lot going on in Edmonton, and I think they... Could you imagine their first home win now? This is what we're going to talk about maybe with betting, and we see this 12.5. Could you imagine their first home win in, 4 seasons now against Winnipeg right now after everything? Or Ryan, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I'll save my pick for later on that as well, but it certainly has a bit of a trap game vibe, and there's a lot of unknown, and that's because there's so many unknowns with Edmonton right now. Bye week, they make some changes, offensive coordinator, coach, offensive coordinator, a starting quarterback. Those are some big changes. They get a big piece back on the offense as well. With Manny Arsenault coming back this week. Well, a decent-sized piece, I would say. He has a couple good looks each game there. So I don't know what to make of to expect of this Elks offense, because I had such high hopes for them coming into this year, and it's just been such a disappointment so far. But the moves they made, I think I like them. I think having a former quarterback be the play caller for quarterbacks that are struggling right now and developing, I think is going to be huge for the team. Much better than what McAdoo was able to produce.
Well, I'm just going to say it simply. I like Jarius Jackson in there. I think that he's at least got a little bit different playbook than what you've seen out of McAdoo. McAdoo has really not been, he's the key definition of vanilla. It's been that way when he was in Saskatchewan. He did that again. Started doing it again in Edmonton. I like the change. I mean, you got to do something to get some attention, and you can't have 2 shutouts in a row against the same team. It's just almost impossible. What I did not like is that Steve Sorrells is still there. I mean, as an offensive coordinator, as an O-line coach, that O-line has been getting beat very often. It has not allowed Kevin Brown to get any run really going this season so far. I just don't like it. So Steve Sorrells, I think, should be the next guy if there is. However, maybe Jarius Jackson can maybe convince him to move his offensive line somehow a little bit differently and see what they can get going. I mean, they've got a running quarterback going in this week. We all know that. Trey Ford is going to be the starter this week against the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. What does he need to do to be successful here, guys? I asked this question a few times over to a little while, but Ryan, what does Trey Ford need to do to possibly, is there anything he can do to be not getting destroyed by Willie Jefferson every second play?
I think it just needs to make smart passes. That's something I somewhat recall in his couple of starts last year, right? Was, again, much like we've seen with a lot of these running quarterbacks coming into the league. They're great. They're mobile. They can make plays happen with their legs. But then when they try to throw the ball, sometimes there's these mistakes that you don't want to see your quarterback making, right? So I think he's just got to play smart football. And, that it may not lead to a win this week. Maybe we see something like what the Riders did with Mason Fine, which is, not great in that first start, a very conservative play call for them, right, to ease them into things if you think Trey Ford is going to be your starter going forward. You want to build off of things and give them some confidence in there. And trying to force things when you shouldn't be is not going to help him get the confidence he needs. Trey?
No, I agree. Oh man, I'm torn in this one. Like the Blue Bomber fan in me obviously wants that D line to just terrorize the poor kid, but then there's the rational football betting gambler degenerate in me that's like, Trey Ford could just run for 150 plus yards and pass for 150 and eke out a field goal win or a Rouge win, right? We've seen it how many times before in this league. Chris Strevler's almost done it. I'm not trying to poke fun at him. We've seen running quarterbacks be able to do it where you can just kind of run in situations. And, Crum got some big runs that, were good enough to beat the Bombers. I don't know. I think he needs to do I don't think he needs to do too much of one thing. He needs to do a little bit of everything enough right. He needs to win the turnover battle for most of all. So if his defense is able to get him one, then he's got some a little bit of leash. But if his defense can't get him one, then he's got to play perfect that way. I think he's got to run for those first downs on second and short. Get out of the pocket. You can't be setting up second and long because Jefferson, Jeff Coat, and the rest of them sack you. You need to be getting out of the pocket and throwing it away or doing things that mobile quarterbacks do while also not turning over the ball, which I think it will be a tough order. But like I've said, we have to remember Tom Brady was the very last draft pick of the NFL draft around he was. We see these guys come in, and this guy wasn't the last by any means. He was in the first, but I don't know. Is he Nathan Rourke 2.0? No. But, I think he can definitely do it. I just think he's set up for failure with his system. I think most busts aren't on the player. They're on the team. So if he busts, I put it on Edmonton more than I put it on Trey Ford. But I'm really interested in this game because it's either feeding the poor kid to the wolves or it's going to be the biggest story of the year. Like I said, they break their home win drought against the Bombers, right? It's set up for a Netflix movie, right? It's set up for a movie right now, either way, and it's great.
No, I agree. I think that right now what I'm looking at for Trey Ford is it's his second year. He hasn't started with the first team this year, but I want to see some progression in him, not maybe running the ball all the time. I've said this lots of times with other quarterbacks like Fajardo and like Mason Fine. I don't want to see him running the ball all the time. I want to see him actually stand in the pocket, make the pass when he needs to make the pass. You nailed it right on the head, though, Trey. I think that the interceptions will be an interesting part of this game. If Demarius Houston gets going and starts making a lot more picks, like he's done all this year so far for the Blue Bombers, I think this could be a very, very long game for Edmonton Elk fans. Sorry again to the guys from the Turf District. On a side note, Trey, I also wanted to mention, you did mention him, the recently free agent, Chris Strevler. Did want to bring him up with the Bombers here real quick. Is there anybody in the CFL is going to sign this guy? I know I hate talking about him, but you know what? Anybody interested, do you think? We'll just go through that really quickly, and then we'll get on to fantasy.
TSN Trey? Panel. I'll take TSN panel. I would love to see him in that fur coat with Stiegel. But no, seriously, if there was one team... Are you sold on Fine and the other guy, Adam? I know you don't have a thing with Strevler, but would you take, be honest, without your prejudice against Strevler, would you take him over what you have?
No.
No?
I wouldn't.
Okay.
I don't like running quarterbacks right off the bat.
Okay.
And Strevler runs and then I don't think Strevler can make a decent deep pass. So
see, I would
take him in Saskatchewan.
If I was Saskatchewan or Edmonton, because I would rather put Strevler in against the Bombers this week. If you could have gotten him on a plane this week, I would put him against the Bombers and give Trey Ford maybe a couple more weeks to then put Trey Ford in, because I think you're really putting Trey Ford to the Wolves here. But any other team, what other team would he fit in? I don't think you're going to go Toronto, because Kelly will be, if Kelly, Kelly's not that hurt. Ottawa's got their guy. Montreal's pretty much a game time decision officially, but they got their guy. Hamilton, I don't think they have the salary cap. Unless they go.
But all these teams could use the depth, right? Because they're on their second, third,
That's
fourth
true,
quarterback.
but I think Strevler personally would rather just sit at home with his NFL pension too than be a third stringer in the CFL. He'll maybe come if someone says, "Here's 250,000, play our slow starter for the rest of the year."
Right.
But if I'm him, who's also got an injury on his throwing thumb, also has an NFL pension, also just only got cut pretty much because of the injury.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure the Jets, the NFL Jets were pretty stacked at quarterback right now. Well, like stacked somewhat with Wilson and Rodgers. So I'm sure there's a team out there in the NFL that might even be, hey, here's a guy. So I see what you're saying, but I think it's more what team he wants to go to than the other way around, right? But I know Adam's the only guy that doesn't like him. GM Adam's the only guy that wouldn't sign him in the bidding war.
Honestly, again, my thing is this: in the CFL, you got to have a good deep ball. Chris Drevler does not have a good deep ball. He can run, he can move. Don't get me wrong; that's an important piece of a quarterback. But I don't like his deep throws. I never have.
Okay.
I've watched him have so many interceptions. He reminds me of Michael Bishop, except for Michael Bishop.
Don't say that name. Don't say that.
I know. I hate saying it the same. I still remember 08.
I know we want to move on, but what quarterback has a deep throw right now?
Coleros.
Okay, but that's recent. He's been pretty trash at it. That was only last week's the first time I've actually seen him do it. And Kelly, is that what you said?
No, I said, what do you call Fajardo has a reasonable arm.
Okay, because not many guys in the CFL even have a deep arm. They can barely make the 20-yard pass out. Most guys this year, so I don't know. But anyway,
like I said, I think touchdown Tommy Stevens there. I think his backup has They always said he has a big arm on him. So
Wild Thing.
I don't know if he can hit the ball, but like I said, I know he has a deep ball. But no, honestly, if I was the Hamilton Tiger Cats, I would maybe think about it. And the reason is, like for Chris Traveler, my reasoning is take the wash and bowl Levi Mitchell, go get some of your money back, release him. I'm sorry, he has not, and this is crazy sounding, and I know that there's going to be Hamilton Tiger Cat fans with pitchforks at my house right away, but what has he done? I mean, he's been injured. He's been through 5 picks and then got injured again. Seriously, what are you wasting time with the money that you're wasting on Bo Levi Mitchell? Bring in Strevler. Maybe you might have a hope. I don't know. He might just turn everything around for you. You got nothing to lose right now in Hamilton.
I'll quickly throw my. I don't think anybody's signing Strevler, but if anybody does, my money's on Ottawa. I could see with Mazzoli done for the year, with Adams done for the year, Crum in there. What are you going to do? Put Arbuckle back in, right? I could see them maybe making that move there. Let's move on to our fantasy picks in this game here, though. I'll start off with the Winnipeg side because I've got a couple notable names on that one. I'm going to put Zach Collaros in here as a fantasy player to watch for the first time this season. He's $15,000, as expensive as it gets, but he might be playing his best ball yet this season for the back-to-back MOP winner. 3 straight games over 300 yards, something he only accomplished like 3 times in the last 2 seasons combined. He's got 2 or more touchdowns in every single game but that one against BC early in the season. He's about as sure of a quarterback pick as you can get. He's expensive, but you're kind of guaranteed to get a decent floor out of Collaros and a good matchup against the Elks here as well. Sticking with the Winnipeg side, I also like their running back, Brady Oliveira, at $14,500. The Elks are by far the best running back matchup to pick against. They give up an average of 17.6 fantasy points to starting running backs, which is nearly 4 points more than any other team in the league. So, Oliveira sits second among all running backs in the league in average points per game and is the leader over the last 3 games. So, probably, you could expect if the Bombers get a lead going into the 4th quarter, another heavy dose of Oliveira time there. Also really like wide receiver Kenny Lawler this week. I mean, how can you not after last week's performance? I would like to personally thank Trey Odoms-Dukes for being a game time decision last week and forcing me to change my lineup and put Kenny Lawler in with 2 minutes until kickoff, who put up 33 points and the highest score of the week. I kind of questioned in the offseason whether bringing him in was necessary for the Bombers, but I don't think I'm questioning that anymore. 2 games, 293 yards, 17 targets, 14 catches, and he's still only $12,500. That's a pretty big steal for the production you get from Lawler. And yes, I am throwing the Bombers defense in here against Trey Ford at $11,000. Considering defenses facing the Elks have put up an average of 11 fantasy points a game this year. And yeah, I think their play calling could improve, but I'm not sold on Trey Ford at quarterback. I think he can make some error-prone decisions, and we talked about it already. I think the interceptions could come in this game there. So those are I got 4 names on the Bombers side. That might be the most all season here. I'll give a name on the Edmonton side shortly, but let's go to you guys here first. From either side in this game, anybody catch your eye? Trey?
From the Bombers side, you pretty much said them all. I got the defense, Oliveira and Lawler. I think that's pretty given. But because of all that salary cap I just chewed up, my starting quarterback right now is the Trey Ford. So we'll see how that goes playing against my defense. But yards doesn't count, right? It's just the points that gets into your defense on the fantasy.
Correct.
Yeah, so like I said, Trey Ford could run for 200 yards, but throw the running back could kind of fumble at the goal line, and then we're good, right? So that's kind of the game I think it's going to be. Adam? Oh, you are muted, sir.
Whoopsie daisy, muted 2 times. Anyways, went and looked at this one here, and I wanted to take Trey Ford at first because I figured I needed the extra cash. And then I started putting my players in, and I didn't really need all that money. I got extra money to spend on people. So you know what I did? I pulled out Trey Ford, and I put in Zach Collaros. So I'm going to go with Zach Collaros in this one here. I think he's going to have a big game like he did last week. And it's also the Edmonton Elks, so, probably.
Okay, I have a quick question on this game. I know we want to move on, but I have enough salary for either Trey Ford or Drew Brown. Who do you take?
Trey Ford. I think you take Trey Ford. I don't think you can. It's way too risky to bank on the backup. If, say, Drew Brown was 20, even then, I don't know. It's risky. I would go with the starter here. More opportunities there for you. If a guy is 2,500 and you really want to risk it, and if he gets 0, you're down 3 points behind what you need from value. It's not a ton. Even at $5,000, it's not a ton, but I think you got to go Trey Ford here among those options. And yeah, he's the name I've got on the Edmonton side for you to consider this week as well. $5,000, you're hoping for just 7.5 points for him. I can see a scenario where Trey Ford is a disaster this week. I really can. And this pick could not work out. But his salary is so low, I think it's worth the chance. Like I said, they've had a bye week with him to prep him as the starter. They announced it pretty early. Jarius Jackson's new play caller. I think that's going to help. And he's mobile quarterback, which Bombers do struggle against sometimes. So Winnipeg does give up 15.1 fantasy points to starting quarterbacks, which is 3rd worst in the CFL. So it's a decent matchup for him here also in this one. And just to touch on the strategy you mentioned there, Trey, the interesting, do you take Trey Ford and the Bombers defense? I honestly think that's pretty viable because if we're talking about Ford's potential is the upside of the yardage he can chew up and the downside is the interceptions, well, you essentially neutralize those interceptions. It becomes 0, right? If you take the defense and you take Ford, it cancels out. So I think that's actually a viable strategy. Pick the defense playing your quarterback if you have that one unsure side of things. Let's look at the betting odds for this one. What is the line at here, Trey?
Sorry, I lost our little script here. 12.5. The road favorites, Bombers, are 12.5. Couple touchdown, field goal, and a few rouges there. Oh my god! And over under 45. This one just has the smell of trap game. It does, and I can smell it. I smelt it from a couple weeks ago when I first saw this one on there. I knew it was going to be almost a 2-touchdown thing. As of now, what's an hour before kickoff we can change? I'm going to take the Bombers now with the over because I think Winnipeg will score that much, but I'm going to take a look tomorrow and see how I feel a little bit better. Adam, what about you?
Well, I'm going to go with the Edmonton Elks to cover this one. Yeah, I've smelled trap on this one as well. I did take Zach Collaros, though, so I might change my mind also on this one here an hour before game time. We will see how this works out, but I'm going to take the under on this game. The last time these two teams played, it took until the fourth quarter for the Bombers to pull away. I don't know. I think that maybe somehow Edmonton can keep this competitive. They got a different offense. You never know. I'm going to go, Edmonton the over or the under. So,
Ryan, you are the tie break for both categories.
And I think I'm going to side with you on both of them here, Trey. I'm taking the Bombers to cover the over, to cover the 12.5 here. Again, I think, the coaching change is good for them. I'm not 100% sold on Trey Ford. Maybe if this game was 2 weeks from now and we have some sample size on him, I would take Edmonton to cover that. But I think Winnipeg's going to win this one pretty handily. I also, like Trey said, I think the Bombers are going to put up a decent number of points on the board. So I think the line being at 45, I can see that in the over as well.
we're saying the streak continues all through, right?
Yeah, pretty much. Unfortunately, as much as I really want to give it to Edmonton, this is not the optimal matchup week for them for that. But like we've all been saying, it is a trap game. It could happen. The Bombers started slow against them last time.
Hey, Ottawa did it the other day against Winnipeg.
Yeah, no, exactly, and that's the thing about the CFL; it can happen at any moment, right? So we saw Calgary beat Toronto last week. Who saw that one coming? Let's move on to our second game of the week here, which is the Saskatchewan Roughriders visiting the Montreal Alouettes on Friday night at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time. What are we looking at for storylines here, Adam?
Well, I think the first one we've got to talk about is, of course, Cody Fajardo getting to face his old team. Maybe. He is a game time decision right at the moment. Jason Moss, the head coach for the Montreal Alouettes, who also probably has a little bit of beef behind him right now, facing the Rough Riders. I think probably said that Fajardo, he's going to bet on the side or err on the betting side that Fajardo will play this weekend on Friday night against the Riders. Same thing also with William Stanback. He was banged up a little bit in that Hamilton game. Both the guys are expected to probably play here this week against the Rough Riders. You guys actually believe in that, though? That there is a little bit of a kind of a beef between, or did the players actually look at this and say, oh yeah, I'm circling this one on the calendar, or is it just a fan hype thing? To me, I think it's more of a hype than anything. I think both Fajardo and Moss are like, whatever, it's the Rough Riders. We got to play them this week. Okay. Is what I look at like it. I mean, I don't know, especially Moss. He wasn't there that long. Same thing with Fajardo. But I don't know. What do you guys think? Is this actually a real thing that they circle this one on the calendar or not? Ryan?
I would. I think I would as a player. You take any bulletin board material you can get to get you pumped up for a game, right? Like we had the Bombers and the Lions last year. Marcus Sales talks about their vanilla offense, and the team really leaned into that, right? And maybe that was more on the social media side than in the locker room, but the players and coaches will always tell you, we're our record's 0-0 and we're just trying to win this week, and we don't really will look at the records and things like that. Yeah, that's BS to me. Like internally, you're looking at those things. Those thoughts are in your head most likely. And yeah, I think guys do circle the matchups and get a little more excited for those. What do you think, Trey?
Oh, 100%. I circle slow pitch team up like matchups, man. There's this one team that wears tie-dye uniforms. I actually this year is the first year I like them because they started talking to me, but I've loathed them for years. And every time I know we're playing them, man, I take an extra Red Bull and I get jacked up. And if I do that, I'm sure professionals do. Maybe it's not super like out front, especially coaching staff and something like that. But maybe like a few weeks before, you're like, oh, this game's coming up. This game's coming up. I want to, especially I think Fajardo more, where he wants to go and be like, hey, guess what? I have no O line here and I can win kind of thing. They didn't give, or something like that more than Moss, maybe. I think there's only one guy who I've ever heard genuinely doesn't talk about records and stuff or all this stuff. And I think that's Osh. Other than that, everyone else is BS. Osh, I could believe maybe doesn't care about it because he's just a different animal. Everyone else cares about it to some degree. I think the better people don't show it, but I think Fajardo the most. The second he signed in Montreal, he's like, okay, when do we play the Riders? And I don't blame him. I would too.
I don't know. I think I look at it as Fajardo maybe is a little different because he was very emotional with the Rough Riders. I know maybe there's something there. I don't know. Jason Moss, I think he just circles it as another game and doesn't really. He's got to worry about everything else. He's got to worry about what the defense is doing, what the offense is doing. Or what the special teams is doing. He ain't got no time to go and sit and worry about revenge. So to me, if you're a player, yeah. If you're a coach, whatever. It's another game. It's at home. We'll have an advantage because the Rough Riders are coming off of a late game here. They played Thursday night or Sunday night, so they're on a short week right now. So probably a little bit of advantage Montreal there. Notable injuries for the Alouettes. Walter Fletcher, again, healthy scratch, no big issue. William Stanback, as I said before, hip injury. He's been limited in practice all week. Almondo Sewell, that could be a big one for the Alouettes. Hip injury, hasn't practiced yet this week. And again, as I said before, Cody Fajardo, left shoulder injury. Didn't practice on Tuesday, was limited on Wednesday. And I'm just taking a look if there's anybody else really on the list that would be interesting. Zach, is that Lindy? I think it is Lindy. Head injury, didn't practice. He's out this week with that injury. Over on the Saskatchewan side of the football, really quickly, they made a transaction today. It was kind of a surprise transaction, I think, to some. They did release veteran wide receiver Darrell Walker. He came into Saskatchewan. Everybody thought, well, there's our veteran that we need. There's our leader that we need. And in week 10, he is looking for another job. They had some good receivers coming in now. The Riders brought in a new guy this last week here. Steed, was it? Sorry, I can't pronounce. Stearns, was it? Yeah, Stearns. Looked extremely good on his first game with the Rough Riders. So I think, in my opinion, Darrell Walker just became kind of a cap casualty / business decision because there's guys in front of him that are better. Guys, what do you think? Is Darrell Walker just kind of beaten out by young guys, or is it a cap casualty, or what's the story here for the release of Darrell Walker from the Rough Riders? Trey, you want to go first?
Who was he play this year? So this is a name I should know. I'm just kidding. I don't know.
Had a good game against the Elks, and then he got injured. So
that's what I mean. I honestly think it's just, I think he just got beat out by younger guys. Cap decision. That's all I think it is, Ryan.
Yeah, and that's what I think it is as well. And I think John Hodge was reporting as well that because he's been in the league for so long, that after this week's game, his contract would have been guaranteed. So that's probably the timing of why he's being let go now. And, it sucks to see. You never want to see a guy lose a job due to injury because he looked great in the preseason and training camp. And he is still a great receiver. And I think he'll land on his feet somewhere in the league here yet. I don't know which team would maybe take a look at him. Maybe a team like Montreal. If Greg Ellingson is still a little ways off and Reggie White, right? They've had a couple younger receivers in there. I can think of a team like that, maybe a team like Hamilton or somebody like that. Toronto takes a look at him. I think there will be callers for him, but yeah, I think he just lost his spot in the lineup because everybody else has stepped in and played so good for the Riders.
Absolutely. And another guy that's been playing real well for the Rough Riders. This defensive line has really picked up the pace for the Rough Riders. I talked about it yesterday in the Combine call-in show. Anthony Lanier, 3 sacks, had a massive game for the Rough Riders last week. This should be a little bit of and quick answer on this one here. Should Fajardo maybe be worried a little bit about the sack coming in from Saskatchewan? Because it seems like they've learned how to get some real pressure up on the quarterback. The Riders have in the last little bit. Do you have to plan for it, or do you have to put somebody back to give Fajardo some extra coverage, or can you still run some plays out of the backfield without protecting Fajardo so much? Trey?
You should always have someone extra protecting Fajardo, shouldn't you? So how long he holds on to the football. But maybe. I don't know. Again, I don't think so, Ryan.
I think the offensive line for Montreal has also done a lot better the past couple of weeks too, because last week they gave up 2 sacks. The week before it was just 1. So whereas it was 5, 6, 7 early in the season, Alouette's offensive line has actually done a bit of a better job, or maybe they put an extra blocker in there recently as well. So we'll see which one gives. The Riders' defensive line is playing better, but also is the Montreal offensive line. So one of them is going to give. But yeah, I think that's definitely been a big boost for the Riders, their defensive line play the last couple of games.
A couple quick injury notes for the Saskatchewan Rough Riders. Still quite a few injuries to go through, but Zach Fry fully practiced this week. He's been having a lower back issue for quite a little while. Mitch Picton actually was practicing. He will be out, though, this week. Head injury. Brandon Council still out. Has a knee injury. We all know about that one, I think. Keon Schaefer-Baker, same thing. He was limited in practice. Will be out this week. Albert Awachi's out this week, which is a bigger loss than you think. Knee injury for Albert Awachi, fullback. He's had some good blocks there for Mason Fine in the last little bit. Jawan Breskison, he fully practiced, but I think he's one more week on the 6-game injured list. That's why he will be out this week. Shea Patterson, doubtful this week. Knee injury, didn't practice this week. Micah Johnson as well, non-football related, but didn't practice so far. Same thing also with Pete Robertson, which is a big defensive lineman again. Lots of spots there in the defensive line with injuries right now for the Rough Riders. That's starting to add up just a little bit. Mason Fine is still going to be playing for the Riders this week. I've given my opinion on him. I don't think I need to go through much more with him, but I think the big thing we need to know is Ryan going to throw him on the fantasy charts this week?
Yeah, well, since you're asking, we'll start on the Saskatchewan side of things. And yes, I do have Mason Fine as an option at quarterback this week at $8,000. And a large part of that is just the volume of work he gets. In his 3 starts so far, he's averaged 39 pass attempts and 294 passing yards. Last week, he settled it down a little bit and avoided throwing an interception. So I liked what I saw from him last game. He was one of the highest scoring quarterbacks of the week. And I think he's continuing to improve. And I think, if you're looking at pricing of similarly priced quarterbacks at this price level in the middle range of $8,000, it's either him or it's Dustin Crum you're going with. And for comparison, Crum has averaged just 24 pass attempts a game and 196 yards passing in his last 3. So to me, yeah, it's a bit of a tougher matchup against the Alouettes for passing sake here, but I still like what I've seen from Mason Fine so far, and I think they're getting more confident in their play calling for him too. So I do have him as a player to watch, and I've got a couple of his receivers in here as well. Sean Bain Jr. is $14,200. I just picked him up in our draft league off the waiver wire this week because I am so excited about that. And I am so impressed with what he has done so far this season. In the 3 games since Mason Fine took over, 8.7 catches a game on 10.3 targets. That's as much of an opportunity as you can get. Got over 70 yards in each of those and a touchdown in his last 2. Also helps that the best matchup against Montreal is left slot back. They give up the third most in the league to that position, and every other receiver position Montreal shuts down as one of the top 3 defenses against. So you have to think the Riders, if they're developing their game plan here, are going to be targeting Sean Bain just as much as they recently have been. And for the other one, it's the locked-in value play of the week. It's wide receiver Jareth Stearns at $2,500. I'd like to give a quick shout-out to Brandon Sanders, friend of the show, our resident college football expert in our community. Also beat me, spoiler alert, in our Discord head-to-head fantasy league this week. And Jareth Stearns was a big part of that. He showed up on the depth chart. Brandon called his shot, hyped him up, and Stearns was the top value play of the week last week. 7 catches, 7 targets for 71 yards. It's about as surefire of a value pick as you can get. So lock it into your lineup. Also got 3 names on the Montreal side, but I want to hear from you guys first. Either side of this matchup, any players you have in your lineup? Let's go back to you first, Adam.
Well, I've got Jareth Stearns. I mean, no question. I'm going to put him in my lineup. He pretty much just inherited Darrell Walker's job. I mean, they're going to play him quite a little bit here, and I think he's really, really looks like a promising receiver. I don't see him going in anywhere else. He reminds me a little bit of the Austin Mack situation on the other side of the football. But no, I did not pick Austin Mack. I actually picked up Tyler Snead again for the Montreal Alouettes. I think he'll have a pretty good game up against the Rough Riders. The other guy I picked was William Stanback. The reason I'm picking Stanback is this. The Riders are on a short week. They've got lots of defensive linemen that are kind of banged up or at least questionable for the game or possibly even going to be out. So I don't like the look of that defensive line in the Riders as much as I usually do. And I think that that means William Stanback might finally get a chance to run the football a little bit. So guaranteed, watch Jason Moss never run the football this week. So, yeah, that happens. Trey, who do you got?
Man, this must be the reason why we all suck in fantasy. We picked the same guys. I got Stearns. I don't have Stanback, but I'll put Stearns in some salary cap relief after everyone else I got. Yeah, only kind of person I like in this. If I had it, I would think Fajardo because, again, I'm banking on him going off. I just don't have the salary cap for that, I don't think. But, yeah, that's my only other choice if I had to pick. But for sure, Stearns.
All right, I've got a couple of the guys you mentioned already. I mean, Adam, you touched on William Stanback. I do have him as a player to watch this week as well at $11,000 because breaking news, Jason Moss has learned how to use a running back. After averaging just 7.7 carries a game between weeks 3 and 5, he's averaged 15.3 in his last 3 games, which is pretty much tops in the CFL. Last week he had 100 yards rushing. Sadly, no targets, which was a bit disappointing in that one. But, he's got that decent floor each week of 10-plus points in each of his last 3 games. And he still hasn't found the end zone yet this year. So once he finally does, as long as Caleb Evans doesn't poach his touchdowns, that's just going to add to the floor you're already getting for him. It is a tough matchup against the Riders defense, but I think it's hard to ignore the volume, especially if Cody Fajardo is not 100% healthy. I think that would be a play there. Now, Stanback, like you said, Adam, is listed as questionable on the depth chart. If suddenly he is not ready to go for this game, I think Jeshurun Antwi is like $2,500 in fantasy, which is super cheap deal you can get when most top running back options are expensive right now. So I would lock him in. Stay tuned in the Discord channel for updates on that. Another name in the Montreal side, we haven't talked about this guy at all this year, and I'm really excited to bring him up, and it's Courtney Davis at $5,800. 3 starts for him this year at right wideout, and he's averaged 8 points per game and 5 targets, which is kind of just shy of what you're looking at for the price. The Riders' defense is one of the best at shutting down some of the other receiving positions, including where Austin Mack lines up at left wideout. So I'm actually banking on Austin Mack having a bit of a lower game this week. But they do give up the second most points to the right wideout position. So it's the best matchup for Fajardo, Caleb Evans, whoever's at quarterback, and the Alouettes to exploit against the Riders. And he's only $5,800. So you're looking for about 8.7 points out of him. I think he can hit that. And I also do have the Montreal defense at $8,200 because outside of games against BC and Toronto, top teams in the CFL, they gave up 35 points in each of those. But every other game this year, they've allowed less than 20. They've also forced the fourth most turnovers in the league. But they are last in the league in sacks. That is the one bad note against the Alouettes defense. But I think facing a Riders offensive line that has given up a fair share of sacks themselves, I think that can trend in the other direction. And they're one of the cheapest fantasy defenses, so I think it is worth a shot. What is the betting line at for this game, Trey?
Montreal at home -5.5 over the Saskatchewan Roughriders, and 44.5? Yeah, 44.5 for the over/under. So real quick, I'm going to take Montreal. I think Fajardo is going to have his revenge game, and I'll take over the 44.5 because I'm thinking it'll be like 28-21 kind of thing, or 30, within a touchdown, but kind of in those mid-20 range. So yeah, Montreal over. Ryan, what do you think for this one?
Last game I agreed with you on both of them. This game I'm going to disagree with you on both of them. I am taking the Riders at +5.5 on this one. I'm probably taking them outright to win this game as well. I am a believer in what Mason Fine's been doing. I'm not sold on Fajardo being, a game time decision. That could easily trend in the other direction there, right? Last minute. So I think Montreal being -5.5 favorites based on that is a bit extreme. In this one, I'll take the Riders, and I'm taking the under because, as I mentioned, every game but 2 this year, Montreal has let in less than 20 points, and the Riders have pretty good defense themselves. So I think this is going to be a defensive showdown. Lots of yards potentially, but maybe not as many touchdowns on the board. Adam?
I'm going to go Saskatchewan in this one, and the reason being is because Cody Fajardo, I remember last year when somebody played through a knee injury and was hurting his team by playing through the knee injury. So, yeah, I think he might be doing the same thing in Montreal because, you know what? I just want to play against the Riders. You know what? I'm going to say the Rough Riders in this one, and I'm going to go with the under as well. I think that this isn't going to be a very high-scoring game. Both defenses are pretty good. So, yeah, that's what I'm going to go with.
All right, we move on to our third game of the week here, which is the Calgary Stampeders visiting the BC Lions. Saturday game at 7 p.m. Eastern time. So I guess that's 4 p.m. start, I think, over on the West Coast. 3 or 4 o'clock. I can't do time zone math right now. Where do you want to begin first here, Adam?
Well, let's start with the BC Lions. I think that we see that they probably will have a quarterback back this week. Not Dane Evans. Dane Evans is actually listed as a did not practice all week so far with some rib injury, but that means Vernon Adams Jr. is ready to go. Brings in a different dynamic, and I think the BC Lions sorely missed him. Just seems to keep this offense really kind of ticking along. What can you tell us all about Vernon Adams, Ryan?
I mean, VA's had a good season so far. Throw out that 6-pick game against the Toronto Argonauts. I would say that one's an outlier. Other than that, VA has looked really good. He's looked really comfortable in that offense. He's been able to produce, not quite, but decent levels compared to what that offense could with Nathan Rourke last year. So I think they needed him back. I think Evans has struggled a little bit the past couple of weeks. And what better way to shake off that shellacking to the Bombers than to get your starting quarterback back in here for this matchup with Calgary?
Yeah, and I don't even see actually Vernon Adams Jr. even listed on the injury chart, which is quite a nice thing. I would have thought maybe he had a little bit of a knee injury, and again, that could be maybe a little bit of a concern for me because he's a mobile quarterback. Trey, any concern with Vernon Adams coming back already?
Absolutely not. And all I want to say is November 22nd, we got to get Derek Taylor back on so I can tell him about how great VA is after he gets the Grey Cup, buddy. Because I think I can't see this team losing this game. They got absolutely obliterated. Not Vernon Adams' real fault, but they got, now he's back the whole other week of practice. This team, I don't know, like this West, like this season in general is I love the standings, how it looks like Bombers and BC. I think we actually have an old-fashioned West shootout here going down the stretch, and and then the second or the third and fourth place teams with Saskatchewan and Calgary. It's going to be a fight to the end, and I think BC knows that. And this is a game they need to win, because if Calgary wins, well, then next thing you know, Calgary is kind of sniffing in and around. It's a big game, these points. So I think VA knows what he's got to do, and he's going to come in and play.
Yeah, and I look at this game and I say that Vernon Adams, again, if he's healthy, why not? You may as well get him going. You got a division rival, and you're right, Trey. I mean, they're not that far ahead of the Calgary Stampeders or even the Saskatchewan Rough Riders, for that matter. They're maybe a little bit ahead of the Edmonton Elks, but we won't talk about them because I think I can't even see them in Riverview here at this point. But it's going to be a dogfight in the West, and one of those four teams won't make the playoffs as far as I'm concerned, because it could even be an East crossover. You never know. So we'll be interested to see what happens in this one. Did want to bring up a little bit quickly about the defense of the BC Lions, I should say. They got embarrassed last week. I mean, if it wasn't Kenny Lawler, if it wasn't Nick Dembski, if it wasn't Drew Wolatarski even going against them, I mean, that defensive secondary got just absolutely embarrassed. If you're the head, or if you're the defensive coordinator of the BC Lions, you're Ryan Phillips right now, what are you doing to convince this team that to get these team back on track? Right?
Keep doing what you've done all season long. Like, good teams are going to have bad games, right? Like, it's extremely hard to go 18-0 in sports. We saw Winnipeg struggle against BC earlier this year, and now all of a sudden it was the other way around in this one. So obviously what they've been doing has been working all season long, except for last week. So, maybe tighten up that deep ball a little bit, because that's what got them early last week. But other than that, I think it's status quo for the BC defensive game plan, Trey.
If I was the defensive coach for BC, I'd be as passionate as that Argos defensive coach was last week on the sideline at practice this week, saying, "Hey, let's go, boys." It's one thing to let Winnipeg do this to us, but Calgary right now, that's kind of what I'm saying. Because again, I think I'm going to use my horse racing analogy. Winnipeg and BC are the two horses coming down the stretch, and there's a field of, Edmonton, I'm sorry, is getting put down the backstretch right now with a shotgun, while the other two horses are kind of somewhere near fighting for third, right? And BC, think about horse racing. It's one bad step, and next thing you know, BC's getting put down with a shotgun too, right? So, and I think that's kind of what they're looking for, and you don't want to have two bad games back to back. Again, like I said, it's one thing with Winnipeg. You can forgive Winnipeg to some degree. You can forgive Toronto. There's certain teams in the league this year you can forgive. Calgary, that's kind of on the line. That's why when we're looking at the power rankings, right? I'll bring this up real quick. When BC and Winnipeg, or in Toronto, right, we're kind of near the top. I can forgive BC's losses to Toronto. What did they lose to Toronto and Winnipeg? Right? I can forgive those a lot more than I can forgive Winnipeg's, Ottawa. BC's okay, but in Ottawa, that's where I am. BC's, I think their two losses are a little bit more forgivable because they're against the teams that they're probably going to see in November. And this is probably not a team you're going to see in November because, I agree, Adam. My East crossover was 1 year too late, and this might be the year for it. So I think BC or Winnipeg's going to be hosting Ottawa or Hamilton, right? If things go this way, and which would be cool as hell. But I think BC just needs to keep it going, right, Ryan? Or I don't know where we're at. I ranted. I'm sorry.
But I'm agreeing with you both. I mean, if I'm Ryan Phillips, I go into the film room. I grab every copy of the defensive plays that the BC Lions put on last week, grab the film, burn it, and scoop up the ashes and burn them again. Because they honestly aren't that bad of a team. They just had a bad game. They weren't quite, I don't know if they weren't ready or wasn't prepared or something wasn't right, or they just had the wrong playbook out against the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. They're fine. They'll be okay. You still got Matthew Betts back there who's doing just incredible things, sacking quarterbacks. The defensive ends will get it, and the corners will be fine. Just a bad game overall.
Quickly run through the 100% short week, and Winnipeg had the bye. That's all it is.
Absolutely.
You go Saturday to Thursday. The Thursday night game in NFL and everything is the worst game ever because you got 4 days to work, and then you play a team with Mike O'Shea and the bye. That's the worst combination. I think that's all it was. And now you have BC against Calgary, and it's going to probably be the opposite. BC, I could see BC going up 40 in this game just as much as Winnipeg did against them. But sorry,
Yeah. No, for sure. And I mean, we'll see what happens here. But I'm just taking a look at the WC Lions injury list here for this week. Dane Evans didn't practice all week so far with rib injury. Jalen Edwards Cooper. Jalen Edwards Cooper, I guess, did not practice. He's had a knee injury a little bit here. TJ Lee also didn't practice, foot injury. I'm just taking a look of anybody else that I can see in here. Dominic Rhymes, he still has a knee injury, but he fully practiced week, so I wouldn't be too concerned about him.
He didn't practice today, though.
Oh, he did practice today. You're right. Okay, I couldn't quite see that real well. I'm still looking at a TV when I should be looking on a monitor. So sometimes I can't see things quite as clear as some other things here. Yeah, that's about what I see here really for the BC Lions on their injury side of things. Let's move on to the Calgary Stampeders really quickly. I see Kadeem Carey's fully practicing. His toe injury is definitely, he's recovering from it. However, Dedrick Mills had a big game last week. Which one do you guys play if you have the option right now? Dedrick Mills or Kadeem Carey? Trey, you look like you're switching the hardest. Who do you got?
Dang it. Dang. See, the one thing I don't like about the CFL, which I'll give credit to the NFL, is the NFL does the rotation more, and that's what I would do if that's allowed to be an answer. If I had to pick one guy, I'd go with Mills, but I don't have a reason other than that's what my heart's telling me. Ryan, maybe you got some fantasy stats that can back up your answer better than me.
No, I don't on this one, really, because spoiler alert for fantasy, I'm staying away from both Calgary running backs because I don't know what they're going to do at the position, right? I think Carey will get the job back. It was his job before injury. Granted, we just talked about Darrell Walker earlier, but it's tougher now because Mills had a couple down weeks, and then, if Carey was back last week, it would have been, perfect sense. But no, Mills carried the ball for 27 times for like 130 yards last week and had a massive game. So I could see a scenario where they run them both a little bit, but I would wager probably that Carey would be the starter if he's good to go.
The only thing I can see, though, is I don't think they can do it with how their receivers and offensive line are set up for Canadian. You can't run that many Americans. So I think that could be an issue for the Calgary Stampeders. If I'm them, I'm running Dedrick Mills this week just because give Kadeem Carey one more week. Although, that being said, this is a divisional rival. You need the win here. In BC, in a hostile situation, BC places probably be rocking. It's been going all season long very well. The crowd's been into it, and nothing quiets a good crowd like a good couple runs. So if Kadeem Carey, he's the overall leader from last year for runs. He's there, and if he's ready to go, I don't know. I don't want to be ever in this situation. Luckily, I don't think I'll be an offensive coordinator anytime soon. Trey might. He's still got the whiteboard. But other than that, we're at least I don't have to choose this one. It's Dave Dickinson and apparently the offensive committee's choice. Couple quick injuries to talk a little bit about the Stampeders here. Like I said, Kadeem Carey's been fully practicing. Trey Odoms-Dukes also has been fully practicing this week, has had some rib injury problems. Colton Hunchak, he's another name, wide receiver, fully practicing as well. Cole Tucker, I think he was the first-round draft pick for the Stampeders this season. Another wide receiver, he did not practice with a foot injury. He's had some decent fantasy weeks, so kind of maybe a little bit of a loss there as well. But Trey Odoms-Dukes being healthy, I think that helps them a lot. Is this a team that still needs to find some veteran wide receivers or just go with what you got? We've seen in the last couple of weeks here, Jake Mayer has had some more success, maybe not last week, but the week before is that he had some pretty good success with some of the receivers he's had. Tommy Lee Lewis has seemed to come into play a little bit for the Stampeders. Same thing also. That would be Reggie Bagleton. I think has had a few games now that he's looked a little bit better. Is this what the Stampeders are going to go with, or do you think maybe it's time to maybe bring in Darrell Walker or somebody else? Maybe what's his name that just got released by the Toronto Argonauts as well. There's another option.
Well, they actually did bring him in already. Markeith Ambles was brought in by the Stamps this past week. So I guess my answer to your question is no, I don't see them bringing somebody else in because they did just bring Ambles in, and we'll see if he gets in the lineup this week.
Trey?
Ditto. I concur. No, I don't know. I just think this isn't the Calgary of the last decade, right? And I think we have to start getting that out of our minds. They're hitting that. They're going to be what the Patriots are now. If you want to compare the two, they were the team, and the next thing you know, the Tom Brady or Bo Levi leaves for whatever reason. Now they're not quite the same team, and I think they need a lot more than just a receiver or a different running back or this or that. I think there's a lot more that needs to go into it this offseason. So no, even if they could bring in Chris Streveler, and I think they'll not do that great. So
fair enough. I don't think
they could start my wild thing though, and then they'll go undefeated the rest of the year. But that's about it.
As long as they play the song when he comes out,
that's the greatest song ever. I don't care what anyone says. That's the greatest song ever, and the fact that they do that was the best.
In all honesty, I can't believe any baseball pitcher right now, like any closer, doesn't come out to Wild Thing. Like, come on, somebody's got to do it, and not just Charlie Sheen.
The best roller coaster ever at Wonderland in Toronto is the Wild Beast, and they used to play that outside. Wild Thing when I went there as a kid.
Anyways, now that I'm done reminiscing about the movie Major League, and Trey's done reminiscing about a what do you call amusement park ride. Ryan, what do you think about fantasy this week?
Yeah, this game I've got a couple less options because both these defenses are actually pretty good. I've got two on the BC side, one on the Calgary side. We'll start with the home team Lions here. Taquan Mizell, $11,500, I think is still one of the top running back plays. Last week they got blown out of the water, but he still got 10 carries in there and 6 targets. He was seemingly the only piece of the offense that had anything going for BC last week. Offense should be better now with VA coming back, and I think if Mizell can maintain that steady role in it, he can have a productive day against Stamps defense. That does average the 4th most points against from starting running backs. And I also still have Keon Hatcher in here week after week at $11,000 because he's somehow still cheaper than all BC starting receivers except Whitehead, despite him being the most consistent. He's yet to produce a game under 10 points this season. And last week he had 4 catches, but a whopping 11 targets. If this is his floor, even with the backup quarterbacks in, then that's got to at least be his floor, you would think, with VA in the lineup. So I think there's potential for higher totals there. Although it is important to note this one is a tough matchup. The Stamps do give up the least in the league to the left slot back position. But I think Hatcher is one of those players that's almost matchup proof to some extent here. So I would still consider him for fantasy play as my top BC wide receiver option at the minimum. Either side of this matchup, who you got? Let's go to you, Adam.
Yeah, I've got Taquan Mizell. I thought it was always Mizzle, so hopefully we'll figure that one. We'll make it up as we go along. If he wants to do an interview, we'll get it right for him. Nevertheless,
we should probably get it right, though. We should probably figure this out at some point.
I suppose we should, because it sounds like he's going to be sticking around with
keep saying it wrong. Keep saying it wrong. So that's what I do.
Anyways, the running back for the BC Lions will be my pick this week, as well as Keon Hatcher. Those two I was going to go with. And the other one I've got is the BC Lions defense. I think that they probably all have a pretty good game up against the Calgary Stampeders as well. Trey?
I am going to go with one guy on Calgary. We share a similar first name. He doesn't have the Y, I do. Because in week 1 against BC, he scored 20.5 fantasy points. So and he got 22 a couple weeks ago against Ottawa, 16 last week against Montreal. Trey Odom's Dukes. I'm going to see if he can keep it going.
He's been one of my favorite players all season long for sure. I do not have him on the Calgary side in this matchup for myself because I do bank on that BC bounce back defense this week. But the one guy I do have in here is, yes, once again, Markin Michel makes the list at $6,000. Now you might be asking yourself, seriously, after the last 2 straight disappointing weeks, am I really going to go out and recommend him again? And yeah, I am, and here's why. The Lions defense shut down everyone this year until the Bombers kind of cracked the code last week. Throw the ball deep early in the game. So speaking of, throwing deep, I dug deep for the stats on this one, and I'm banking on Calgary early in this game trying the deep ball as well because it worked for Winnipeg last week. Markin Michel sits tied for second on the team in targets of 20-plus yards, despite him missing the first couple of games of the year because he wasn't signed yet at that time. And it's also one of the most favorable positional matchups against the Lions. And he's the cheapest you can get from a good starting receiver from Calgary side. So, even if it doesn't work out, you don't miss a whole ton in this matchup. If he gets one deep ball going his way, you're probably set for value from this. So, yeah, I'm going to keep throwing Markin Michel out there as long as they keep putting him at $6,000 and he has a good matchup. What do we have for betting here?
Well, Cowtown, Calgary Stampeders roll into the Lions den. -5.5 for them Lions. The orange and black take on, this was an interesting one. I'm going to take BC -5.5. I think they're going to have the comeback. Over and under 45.5. For the third straight game, I'm going to take the favorite and the over. Betting this year has been the definition of a crapshoot. Like, I have had a better time gambling on the weather than I have on the CFL this year. So I don't know what to do. I think I'm taking this week kind of as a cleanser and just kind of going back to basics, and then we'll come back strong by Labor Day. But I'm going to take BC in the over because I think there's been too many low-scoring games this year that at some point, right, we're going to start seeing teams explode on each other like we did Winnipeg last week, like we have seen BC and Toronto do. And I think BC is going to do it again. Ryan, you feel free to tell me why I'm an idiot. Or why you're
I don't think you're an idiot. I'm also taking BC to cover -5.5. This one I locked in pretty much as soon as I saw it, and as soon as I saw the line, because big bounce back this week. They're also at home. They play really well at home. The over/under line, I could honestly go either way on this one. I can see BC locking it down enough. I can see both of these teams kind of finding a way to get it done offensively a little bit as well. So.
I have one question. Do you think Calgary putting up 20 against Toronto was a fluke? Because if they can put up 20 against BC and lose, then that 45 is not that bad. That's kind of where I'm thinking with the over, right?
Yeah, you convinced me. I'll take the over.
Okay. I'm just putting my reason because I'm 20 against a great team, but that's a win. So if you can put up 20 in a loss, BC's got to get at least 26 for us to get our cover. That's 46. Quick math. 2 + 2.
Yeah, no, that logic is sound, and I've been weighing something similar to that in my head as well. So I'll go with you on that one, Adam.
Trey, you say that you can bet on the weather. So when have you taken over farming?
Oh man, I don't want your job. There's a lot of jobs that I don't want, but I consider. Farming is one that I'd be pass. I will starve I'll let my children and my family just live in poverty before I become a farmer, man. Because you guys do so much hard work, and I'm too much of a city boy. So I like my PlayStation. I like my desk. I can't do it. Huh? Yeah.
Well, Adam liked his desk too until his monitor broke, and now he's sitting on the couch. So
Well, he probably saw 3 straight days of rain and smashed his monitor. He's just not telling us that, right?
Yes, that's why. Anyways, I've kind of been 7/10 all season, man. I'll even take rain now. Nevertheless, I'm going to take the BC Lions. Lions fans, the Lions could sleep easy that night after that one because I think -5.5. I know, I tried anyways. -5.5. I think.
Oh, I shouldn't do that. We'll get taken down off of YouTube. Sorry.
Oh,
The
do
urban
it.
jungle of Vancouver, the mighty urban jungle of Vancouver. The Lions will sleep tonight. No, they're going to sleep. They're going to
I'm gonna watch
absolutely.
Lion King now. Thanks, guys.
Sorry, man. That's not even the Lion King.
Well, it's in there.
Now that I've completely thrown
It's in
this
there.
off the rails.
Pumbaa sings it to Simba. Give me a break.
Oh yeah, he does. Nevertheless, okay.
Or they don't think they're coming in when they first meet. We can vote. Oh, never mind.
Nevertheless, Vernon Adams is back this week. They've got pretty much all the receivers. They're fully healthy, the BC Lions. They're going to be probably dominating, I think, this week. I think Trey's going to have to go out there. Might have to do a euthanization afterwards because the Stampeder are going to get train wrecked in this one. Give me the Lions. Give me the over. That's what I'm going to go with.
The only positive I see is if this was in Calgary, if they would they at least get to hear Wild Thing a couple times on those 30 shorts. But since it's in BC, I don't think they play that on away games. But yeah, actually, it was funny. Side story: I was with a couple that's never really come to Bomber games, and the girlfriend asked, "Why do they play the Mexican music every time we make a kick?" So I had to explain that. I was like, "It's not offensive. He's from Mexico. It's okay. He wants it." But anyway, I love it. We all agree for once, guys. But if Mike was here, he'd watch him go Calgary and under, and But he's from where? Lands unknown. What did he say in the comments? So whatever.
Parts unknown. Yeah. Somewhere in New Mexico.
Yeah, definitely. All right, moving on to our final game of the week here. The Ottawa Redblacks visiting the Toronto Argonauts on Sunday, 7 p.m. Eastern time matchup here between East Division rivals. What's the storyline here, Adam?
Well, the first things first, I think, is should they or shouldn't they? It sounds like they will, and he wants to, but I don't know if they should, to be honest with you. Toronto's on a bye next week, and that means that you have an opportunity right now to maybe give your starting quarterback, which is pretty much your only quarterback, let's be honest here. Dukes did a little bit against the Calgary Stampeders last week, but yeah, that's not Chad Kelly. Chad Kelly had an injury there in Calgary, was out for the second half versus the Stampeders. You got to buy next week. And the first question I'll give you guys, should they be playing Chad? Even if Chad Kelly says he's 100% and he's ready to go and there's no problem, there's nothing whatsoever, should you play Chad Kelly this week against the Ottawa Redblacks? Or you're up what? It's 7-1 right now for the Argonauts. Do you maybe take him and give him a week off and give him the extra week that gives him 2 weeks and lets him really get a little bit healthier here? If you're the head coach or the offensive coordinator of the Argonauts, do you play Chad Kelly this week? Ryan, you get to go first on this one.
No, I don't think you do. I think that the Argos are so easily going to coast to first place in the East Division that you take your loss potentially this week. You get them healthy. You come out of the bye week. You win a couple more games. You clinch first in the East Division. And then you can rest them down the stretch here and there if you need as well. I also think they're a deep enough team that they could probably honestly win this game, even if Cameron Dukes had to start at quarterback, or whether it's Brian Scott or whoever the backup is currently. I guess it's Dukes. I think that, the priority is getting Chad Kelly healthy, and I think they do have enough of a lead on the division that, given the upcoming bye week, it would just make sense to me. What do you think, Trey?
Oh, I think he should take the week off and maybe come on a podcast. Anyway, but yeah, I think take the week off. And maybe this is like looking too far into it, but like, I don't think anyone will ever sit down and do this. But looking at the standings, I'd almost be Toronto. Let Ottawa win a little bit, just so then that crossover. And I would do it. I would do it because you try to get one of these Eastern teams in the West, and then you play some mind game and then I don't know. Maybe it's looking too into it, but if I had a crystal ball and I could predict things, if I'm Toronto. If I'm sitting first in the East and you could potentially play Montreal or Hamilton in the West-East finals, and then you throw Ottawa in the crossover, and that could be your Grey Cup matchup. Like, I think that's some juicy pickings over because you never know what the West could do. So I think that's really stupid, and I know we're way far out, but that's where my if I'm playing Madden right now, that's what I'm doing. I'm letting the shitty team, oh my god, I swear, the crappy team win. So yeah, there we go. Let the crappy team win, so maybe I could play them in the playoffs later. But if I'm really being serious, I think Chad Kelly, like you said, Ryan, they're up 2.5 games on Montreal. I doubt anyone's going to catch them. Toronto should be focusing on BC and Winnipeg. I know you never want to look that far, but that's kind of where my mindset is if I'm Toronto. Like, it's the same thing as last year. Toronto had one game they really had to win, and they did it. And I think that's kind of where their mindset needs to be, is they got 2 games in November to win, and I think that's where they got to be.
I could try to argue a devil's advocate on this one to try to give some sort of reason on why they need to beat Ottawa this week, but I got a hard time to do it, to be honest with you. Chad Kelly, if he's got any sort of little bit of an injury or a little bit of a problem, just let him sit. I mean, you know what? You got to eventually someday look at what you've got behind Chad Kelly. This is his last year. Maybe you need Cameron Dukes next year. I doubt it. So you're going to try to bring in some other guy that's a real starting quarterback. Cameron Dukes is only his first year in the CFL. So I kind of doubt seeing that, but you never know, right? And you never know what could happen later on down the road. It's one play and Cameron Dukes is in for the foreseeable future.
Well, remember, a guy who never had any CFL experience came into the Grey Cup and that drive helped beat the Bombers, right? So you kind of maybe want this guy to get some reps in, right?
You would think so, especially when that guy that just won him the Grey Cup went 6-0, and you haven't played anybody else since, essentially.
And how could things have been different if Dinwiddie got some more playing time or some other situations, right? Like, you want some of these guys to get playing time when they can, and that's kind of my biggest reason why I think Bo should get out of there too, right? You want these other guys to get playing time. So I agree. Let them sit. Yeah, if we could give Rourke MOP for 7 weeks, I think Kelly can sit a week or two, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I also wanted to just say, I mean, Ryan Dinwiddie, I thought he played more than enough in the 07 Grey Cup. I thought he did very well there. So
I don't think he played at all. I don't think that game happened. So
oh yeah, I guess there's no stats anymore. Same like the 09 and 210 Grey Cup. I mean, the Riders won both of those, right?
Yeah.
Anyways.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, for sure. So notably, I just wanted to bring up one quick little thing here as well. The Argonauts, Jamal Peters, they bring him in back from the NFL, and he's a healthy scratch on the Toronto Argonauts team. I mean, anybody got some insight into that one?
It just speaks to how deep this team is. Like, if Jamal Peters can be a healthy scratch on this team, like, he'd be an all-star on any team in the CFL, in my opinion. They've got depth everywhere.
Right?
I agree, and maybe give a guy some time to get the playbook, because the leagues, see, it's tough. The leagues are different enough, right? Where probably from a physical standpoint, he's ready to go, but from a playbook and a waggle and different things, right? There might be some adjustment period. And like Ryan said, there's guys who have established. Yes, he's a great guy, but who's he going to take out? Like, there's nobody on that team that's lost their spot. All other 18, well, maybe not Winnipeg and maybe not BC, but the other 6, sure, you could take out your best receiver, and this guy's probably could earn the spot, right? But on those 3 teams, it's really tough to take anybody out right now, right? And especially Toronto. You take a guy out, and he's going to sit there and be like, "What's my 4 touchdown catches, and all these 1,000 yards I've caught for Kelly this year mean nothing?" And that's going to create a problem in the locker room, which you don't want at 6-1, right? Like, yeah, you bring a guy in, he understands what he's doing. He's been in the NFL. He got cut. Like, he understands the process. He'll wait. Someone gets hurt, he'll get his shot. I think that's kind of what they're banking on.
Yeah, and after the season he had last year for them, then going off the NFL, and then to get him back and have him just as depth because the other guys you replaced him with to start the year were good enough that he can't get back in. Like they're stacked on the back 7 or whatever it is on the defense there. So, and
you have to remember, it's preseason in the NFL. How many more guys like that are we potentially going to get, right? So if you're going to just start replacing every NFL cut that comes back up here, then what's kind of the point, right? So it's great to have football back, right, guys? So I'm just kidding.
Oh yeah, just ask TSN. Anyway, On a side note, nice job, Sportsnet, on talking a little bit about the CFL teams and adding them into the conversation for once. Good job, Sportsnet.
Just wait till
Anyways,
that TV deal's up.
Yeah, maybe that's their push right now. We mentioned you guys once. Hey, come sign with us. Anyways, Jamal Peters actually might get an opportunity here to start sooner than you think. When I look at the injury chart for the Argonauts, they only had one practice so far this week. I'm just taking a look here. Jared Brinkman, defensive lineman, foot injury, didn't practice today. Darius Pickett, defensive back, hip injury, he didn't practice as well. So that would be maybe the spot that Jamal Peters can fill in as well. Also, Trayvon Tate, defensive lineman, he was in knee injury. He was limited in practice, as well as Devaris Daniels. Knee injury, he's limited. I think he's been on the 6th game, though, if I'm not mistaken. No? Okay. So I'm crazy. Nevertheless, he is also limited with a injury as well. Over on the Ottawa side of the football, this is going to be very interesting to talk a little quickly about. Dustin Crum. Have teams figured him out? I think maybe some guys have. After that Hamilton game, he hasn't quite looked the same. Thoughts, and what does he need to change to maybe get guys back guessing what he's up to and getting more of those heroics going on? Trey, what do you see out of Crum?
He's hitting the baseline that Rourke never hit and other guys never hit, right? You're going to come back down to reality, right? You can only be Hercules for so long. But, I mean, unless you're that next thing, I don't think he's that. Like, it's great, the story he's had, the couple comebacks and everything, but do I think he's that next Bo Levi Caleros? No. Do I think he's maybe in that Fajardo Harris next range? Sure. I think he just needs to game manage and keep doing what he needs to do to get his team to win. I don't think Ottawa, like, even with or without Kelly, even with Kelly starting, if, like, let's say Kelly's 100%, I could see Ottawa winning this game. It's a rivalry game. Southern Ontario, Ottawa's not that far out of it. They're getting some momentum going with the new quarterback, the new situation. So I think he just needs to keep playing. He's a couple levels past Trey Ford. What we said with Trey Ford, he needs to do certain things. Well, now Crum's a few levels farther down, and he just needs to make sure he's really getting the fundamentals. And he needs to get to the game where he doesn't need to do a 30-yard run up the middle to beat the team in overtime to win. He needs to do things in the second, third quarter, fourth quarter that makes his team up by a touchdown at the end of the game. Right, Ryan?
Yeah, and he's going to be, I mean, he's every week so far, he's put his team in position to win it late or be close late, right? And he's done a good job of that. But to me, this is the true test for him this week because everything's been about the run game and not about the pass game for him. Well, the Argos have the 3rd best run defense, I think it is, in the CFL, and they have one of the worst passing defenses. So if you're going to succeed offensively against this Argos team, chances are it's going to be through the air. And so that's a big test now for Dustin Crum to be able to, go and try to get something going in the passing game. Like I said earlier, he's only averaging, 20, 24 pass attempts a game. They got to lean on that a little bit more, I think. And he's got to be accurate when doing so. So I think this is going to be a tough test. It's a tough test for him, and I'm excited to see how he can respond to it this week.
And just looking over the next couple of games, they play Toronto this week, Montreal next week, and then Edmonton. That's a big 3 games, right? Like Edmonton, you think would be a gimme, but you never know. Montreal, that's the battle for 2nd or 3rd, kind of that middle spot. And now Toronto, you got the Beast. This is a big 3 games for Ottawa. If they go 3-0 somehow, we're talking about a team now who would be 6-5, over 500, probably 2nd place in the East. Is that not even a team that, they're in that position? I could see them going 2-1 easily. Don't you guys?
I could see the win against Montreal. I could see the win against Edmonton for sure. I mean, but this team here, this is going to be a very good challenge for him. I mean, you know what I want to see really out of Dustin Crum now? Him actually standing in the pocket a little bit more. And I've said this again a little while ago. I want to see him make his passes. I want to see him make some short passes like Mason Fine has a little bit. I want to see him develop a little bit into more of a three-dimensional quarterback instead of just, oh, well, there's nothing run. And that drives me nuts with quarterbacks once in a while. They see a big field, and it's American. It's an American thing. Americans have such small fields that, oh, well, we can't go nowhere. We may as well try to throw it. So then you do develop a good passing quarterback. In the CFL, you develop a quarterback that goes and sees a big field. And when an American comes in and sees this big field and wide field, hey, look at all that room. Oh, no, these guys are fast. And then they get nailed. So I think that's what's starting to happen to Dustin Crum a little bit. But I really hope that he comes and tries to, like, again, throw the ball a little bit more. And maybe it's not doing the deep ball. Maybe you just get Shaq Evans on a 4 or 5 yard pass and let him try to get some yards. Maybe you try to go and get Braylon Addison open. I mean, he's back now and he's looked good. I mean, you just got to maybe get some medium yardage plays out of Dustin Crum and get him looking a little bit more ahead of himself instead of way back out or looking downfield to see what he can find. And if he doesn't find anything, get running. Maybe you just got to pull his eyes back a little bit, I think, and that might help him out just a little bit. But seeing as I'm not a quarterback coach, I mean, why would you listen to me when I'm saying anyways? So
to be fair, NCAA college football quarterbacks run a lot. Like if you looked at Manziel and Tebow and a lot of these guys, they run a lot. So I can see why they see the extra wide field and their eyes go big and be like, man, I ran for 2,000 yards and threw for 5,000 in whatever Big Ten, which is now has 20 teams in it. But you know what I mean? Like I could see where they get that mindset, like, and it's probably hard to change. And then there's probably that American, I don't want to say arrogance, but, oh, I'm in Canada. I could see, I mean, you know, and I, again, it's something you gotta get over, but why? I'm not against his running. His running's impressed me. I feel he's ran at the right times. He's not forcing things that I've seen. I feel Cornelius and a couple other guys have forced things. I think Crum's doing the right things. He's not your like Strevler runner by any means. He's not that kind of guy, but he's a guy that's mobile and uses it at the right times to help his team. He's a 30-yard run. Like, you know what I mean? Caleros would have never done that, and Caleros could have easily made that run. Bo, you know, there's a bunch of quarterbacks that, not Bo, I don't know why I said Bo. There's a lot of quarterbacks in this league that have the energy and the physique to make that 30-yard run, but don't do it because they're doing what you're saying. They sit in the pocket. He made that run at the right choice, right? And I think Crum, like I said, I don't think he's the next MOP by any means, but I think he's the next guy that next year we might be fighting over in our fantasy league draft. He's a guy that we might be talking about in our top 5 quarterbacks in the offseason very easily. But is he going to be Caleros worthy and the other guys? I don't know, right? So, but you know, if his running goes off, I mean, that's what we liked about Rourke, right? Didn't Rourke do a 300 inch and took it off for 40 yards or 50 yards, right? Crum could do that, couldn't he?
Yeah, the thing with Nathan Rourke was he also threw for 450 yards a game on top of
that.
That's
true.
So that's part of it too.
That's true. I'm just saying I'm not overly worried about Crum's running like I am. Like I felt Cornelius forced it. There's some guys I feel force it because they see the whatever it is, 10 feet or 10 yards wider each side or whatever, and they're like, oh, I can beat that DB, and then they get to the sideline and they maybe gained a yard or lost a yard, and they're like, oh crap, that DB can actually run a 40 quicker than anybody I've ever seen, right? So, you know, I think Crum can calculate. It looks like he's calculated that when he made that overtime run against Winnipeg.
Some notable injuries there for the Ottawa Red Blacks. I'm just going to try to see if I can find it here real quick. Braylon Addison, Achilles injuries. He's fully recovered from that. He's ready to go. Dante Bowles, same thing also for the offensive lineman, leg injury. He's fully ready to go as well. CJ Lewis, wide receiver, Achilles injury, didn't practice, nor did I expect him really to on this one. I don't think he's been playing very much for the Red Blacks at all this season. Drew Desjardins, that could be a big offensive line, big signing for the Red Blacks this season. He's got an ankle injury, hasn't practiced yet. This is early in the week, though, so you never know what can happen. Same thing also, Deshaun Stevens, head injury, hasn't practiced as well. One quick thing, we did bring it up over on our Discord channels. who is the best backup quarterback in the league right now? I just want to bring this one up real quick with you guys. Give your guy and why. I'll go first. To me, right now, it is Dane Evans for me. I think that he is probably the most experienced. He's got the best, probably look in the play. I don't really like his deep balls, but I do like that he can manage a game pretty well when he needs to. Just don't look at those interceptions. Trey, who's the best backup quarterback right now in the CFL?
I'm going to sound like a major homer, but I'm going to say Drew Brown because I really was impressed with what he did when he played, to the point in the offseason I said on this podcast I'd be okay with him getting rid of Caleros for him, right? So we could play that. No one cares enough to edit it, right? So, but I'll go back and find it. I did say that, and I think he's just a guy that's an unfortunate missed opportunity. Well, not missed opportunity as in he's playing behind probably the guy who could win the MOP every year for the next, or this year, last year, whatever, right? I think there's a lot of teams that would take a guy like Drew Brown after what he did those few games. And I know I look dumb saying that, I look like a homer, but I don't know. There's a couple of things he's done that really impressed me, Ryan.
I think it's probably somebody like Matt Schultz, but I got to say, I do actually really like the take that Ballsy had, that Mason Fine is the best backup. Yeah, I can't believe I said that.
I was going to say, we should save that. That's maybe never been said in the history of the CFL podcast radio universe, right?
I mean, we've been just calling him the Riders commentator even. I don't even know if his name has ever been brought up.
I gotta agree with Ballsy, though. I think
where do you guys come up with these guys? Everyone, every Rider play-by-play guy gets just something else, eh? Peterson, Ballsy, everything, right? Like
DT.
Yeah, exactly. Well, DT was DT.
Yeah, but I think Fine is, like, if I look at all these guys, I think Fine has the potential to establish himself as the best passer out of all of them. I think a guy like Crum has the running ability in it as well, but I've hyped up Fine so far. And I'm on board with him here, so I'll go with that one there.
So you're saying I should start him in our fantasy league?
Maybe
over Kelly, who's probably an injury, right? You know,
I'd probably still go Chad Kelly in that sense, but
well, you're also tied with me in fantasy, Mr. Fantasy God. So should I really listen to you?
I'm tied with you.
Well, in our Discord, you're like 7th and I'm 9th. You know what I mean?
Yeah, people are good at this. Speaking of fantasy, players to watch in this game here, we've got 3 of them for you. We'll start on the Toronto side. It's a little bit muddy with Kelly's injury, but it seems like he's probably going to play. But I like wide receiver Cam Phillips at $9,400. It's a great positional matchup. He lines up at middle slot back, or what I call middle slot back. I don't know what the actual technical term is. The Red Blacks give up a league worst 13.7 points per game to that spot, 4 more than any other team in the CFL. He's gotten 14 targets in the last 2 games, and last week put up 19.4 points. That was with Chad Kelly going down due to injury. I think he's my favorite Argos receiver player right now, as we still try to figure out who the top one is. And I also have the Argos defense because Dustin Crum has been sacked a lot. They, as mobile as he is, they cannot keep him upright. 5 or more sacks against in each of their last 5 games. Argos are one of the top teams against the run as well, so I think they're going to have to force Crum to pass a little bit, and I think that could lead to a couple of interceptions. The Argos do lead the league in that category. Also got one name to lock in on the Ottawa side of things, but I want to hear from you guys first. Trey, who do you have on in this game for fantasy?
Funnily enough, I don't have anyone in this game. Oh, no, I have Ouellette. I forgot about Ouellette. I got to go with Duck Dynasty Ouellette. Oh, he just looks like a guy that eats like frog legs raw, doesn't he? Like he just wakes up and pisses Louisiana. You know, I just love it. Yeah, I mean, I really would like, if you need like in our league, our private league, like I got Gittins because of the Canadian aspect and a couple other things, but I think Toronto's getting overpriced, right? And after their loss last week, I'm just kind of worried about a back-to-back loss, especially we're talking about Kelly being out. Maybe Ottawa gets the win here. This is kind of a trap game situation as well, right? So yeah, I'm kind of sticking away from them. Adam?
I have absolutely nobody in this game, and I am not too concerned about it because, again, you're right, Trey. The Argonauts burnt me last week, and I don't like getting burnt. I don't think that they would this week, honestly, but I just can't afford them, to be honest with you. Most of their guys. Cam Phillips was on my roster a few times, and I do enjoy using him, but not this week. And then the Ottawa side.
I was at the beach all day, and this is how tan I am. Look at that. Dang gingers, man. Holy, sorry. I just looking and I'm getting a glow off of my computer screen. I'm sorry.
Dude, just come out and hang out on a combine. You get this nice farmer tan,
No, I get nothing. I am white. Like, that's my up. Like, geez, man. Sorry, we're over an hour and a half. Ryan's got to
Yeah, we better get on this here. Yeah, no, I don't have anybody, Ryan.
All right, fair enough. I do have one name on the Ottawa side, and this was probably one of the first names I locked into my lineup, although now other options have made me reconsider potentially, but it's Justin Hardy at $10,000 for Ottawa. Last week proved once again that the left slot back against the Argos is probably the best matchup available in fantasy football that you can target any given week. When Tommy Lee Lewis filled in for Trey Odom's Dukes and put up 14.8 points against them, Justin Hardy did have just 3 targets last week. It was a bit disappointing, but in the 4 games before that, he averaged 8.5. I think a healthy target share in a dream matchup has the potential for an explosive week here for Justin Hardy if Dustin Crum can get that passing game going there. Those are fantasy options for this game. The betting line here, Trey, you weren't able to find one originally. Were you able to find one now?
Yeah, I looked at the new Neo Bet, the official partner, both Cool Bet and whatever Manitoba's it. I can't remember what that's called now. They both had it down. Maybe it's because of Kelly's injury, right? Sometimes they take things down over a big thing like that. But I found it on the new official partner of the CFL is NeoBet. 7.5 for them Argos. That's a big line, especially potentially if Chad Kelly is out with a 44.5 over under. I'm going to take Ottawa. This might be the first time I bet against Toronto. I don't know if they will win, but rival game, Sunday afternoon, backup quarterback, sounds like a game that Crum could get to overtime, doesn't it? And hard to get over 7.5 points in overtime. I don't think it's possible. Well, might be. Do you have to go for 2? If you have to go for 2, then yeah, it is possible. Very hard. So I'm going to go Ottawa plus 7.5 with the I don't know why I typed this in our chat, but I went to over. But anyway, Ryan, what do you got?
I could go either way on this one. I could see Toronto winning it handily, but Crum every single game finds a way to bring it close at the end. So, yeah, I think I'll take Ottawa to cover this one. I'll still take Toronto to win the game, but I'm also going to take the over on this one. I can see this being a higher scoring game. Again, 2 of the worst passing defenses in the CFL. So let's see some fireworks through the air. Adam?
I know. Yep. No, sorry. My thing wasn't letting me click the mute button. Anyways, I'm going to take the Argonauts. I think that they'll win this one pretty handedly. They ain't going to lose 2 in a row. And especially, I'm sure Chad Kelly is playing because he's Chad Kelly and he wants to play. And I think, yeah, I can't see this one being really a close game, to be honest with you. I'm going to take the over, and I'm going to take the Argonauts.
Ooh, we all took the over. I like that. Okay. Oh, look, I've been liking the Argos this year, though. Like, I'm pretty impressed with them. You know, they just go, what were they, 10-8 last year, 9-9?
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah, they weren't much better. And then, just a couple good drives in that really cold. I remember that cold game because I was wearing shorts. And then next thing you know, they're almost undefeated. And they're not going to go undefeated. They're going to have a game against Calgary. They're going to have a game. They actually play Winnipeg the day of around my birthday. So I'm pretty excited for that. So they're going to have games like that, right? But it's hard. I don't know how they're not number 1 in the power rankings, boys.
Don't get me started on power rankings here an hour and 40-something minutes into the show. But let's round things out with our fantasy league matchups and results. In our private draft league, The reason Mike's probably not here tonight is because he's out planning the parade because he had a monster week, 126.9 points. I mean, he had Colera. He had basically every top scorer of the week. It's insane. He had Coleros, he had Oliveira, he had Kenny Lawler. His lowest scoring player had 10 points. Massive week for Mike at 126.9. Next highest score was me at 68.7. Trey had 60. Adam had 50. We all kind of sucked this week outside of, I mean, Trey and I got some points from Dembski and Schoen, but that was pretty much it. And Mike has taken over the official lead in the overall standings with 755.6 points. I'm about 10 points behind him. Trey, I think you're about 80, 90 points back of there, and then Adam's about 40 points behind you. So
I want to impose a new rule that there's like an attendance rule, so you have to show up to a certain amount of podcasts or you don't count. That's the only way. That's the only way we can get rid of Mike right now. That's the only way because he's too good.
What a monster! What a monster performance from him this week. It was insane.
We haven't got to see Mike's whiteboard. I think that's the problem.
Yeah, hey, he's having a great fantasy season so far. Transactions for this week, he picked up Trey Ford and got rid of Dane Evans. He also put Braden Lenius on IR and picked up Jareth Stearns. I put Keon Julian Grant on IR and I picked up Tyson Philpott because I need another Canadian there. And I released Tim White because I'm tired of being disappointed week after week and picked up, who did I pick up? Sean Bain Jr. that I can't believe was still available on the waiver wire. Nobody bid on him. So I'll take that. In the CFL Podcast Fantasy League this week, we play against other members from around the various CFL podcasts out there. Let's see, this week, Trey, you had a big victory. You had, I think, the third highest score of the week. Kudos to you, 99.1 points on the week. I pulled out a narrow 1-point victory over Travis from 2 and out and got lucky because I think he had Trey Odoms-Dukes in his lineup. So if he would have actually put somebody in who played, I probably would have lost that. Adam, you lost to the league champ this week. I mean, nothing a save button could have done for you this week to change the result of this one.
It was just, I'm not even arguing this one here. I had 50 some points. I mean, there's nothing to be said here. This was just a terrible week for me. And good job, Steve, for getting the best points for the week.
In terms of the overall standings, I'm still locking down the first place in the standings. Trey, right on the edge of the playoff line there in 9th place. Adam, you got some ground to make up here, falling to 13th in the standings there. As we look at our matchups for this week, we've got a couple of matchups with the Turf District. I'm facing Kayla. Trey is facing Andrew. We couldn't make it 3 for 3 in the matchup schedule, apparently, because Adam is playing Adults from Rouge Radio. So make sure you check out those great shows, all the other great shows from around the Canadian Football Podcast Network as well. In our Discord league, Trey, you picked up a big win there as well this week. So double wins for you this week. Mike picked himself up as a win as well. Adam, you and I both lost, unfortunately. Losses for both of us there. Kudos to people in our Discord league. We're struggling there, boys. Mike's in 4th. Adam, you're in 7th. I'm in 8th. Trey is in 9th. And we're getting our butts kicked here. Shout out to FM Fan 2014 for being the league leader at 7-2 on the season so far. Matchups for this week, let's see, Mike's facing Larry. Adam, you're facing FM Fan, trying to complete, I believe, the destruction of the entire CFC crew. I think he's beaten all of us so far. You're our only hope. I'm facing Cheppy, and Trey's facing Extreme 88, who's also near the top of the standings. So chances for some wins to move up the standings here this week, boys. Let's make it happen. We got to take back our league here in those. Of course, lots of fun there with other members of our Discord community and all that fun fun stuff there. Time to wrap up the show, I think, at this time. Let me go, and is that what I want? That's what I want. There we go. We'll be back again next week, same time, same place, for our Week 11 preview. We'll do all the same fun things, matchups, storylines, fantasy players to watch, betting odds, probably a bunch of nonsense in between as well. Of course, we like to have some fun here also. If you want additional content each week, we do an additional show in our Discord community weekly. It should be back with Mike and I driving home, although maybe Adam wants to join us from the Combine there as well. We'll see. Next week, you can check that out in the Discord community. Also, the link to that is in the episode description. It's free to join. On social media, you can find us on, I guess I got to change this graphic so you can get your graphic. You can find us on X at CF Countdown Pod, on Facebook at facebook.com/CF Countdown Pod. Yet to see whether we can actually post our episodes there or if we're considered news, because apparently you can't post and share news in Canada on Facebook now. So, social media is a fun time lately. I'm on Twitter at CooperTrooper42. Mike's not here, but you can find him at Mike Garrell. Trey, you're next. You've got a lot going on these days. Where can people find it all?
Yeah, you know what? I talk about my silly horse racing a lot, but if there's a week to get into it, it could be this next week is Gold Cup and Saucer Week, and that's the biggest week in PEI history. If you don't believe me, you go to your calendar and check next Friday. It's a holiday, Gold Cup parade. It'll say, it says it on mine. It's an actual holiday where the province of PEI shuts down for this race. Old Home Week, it's called Gold Cup and Saucer. Huge race for them. And I'll talk about it on my other podcast, which you can see in the Discord or at TreyHarnessLink.com. It's great time. Like, this race goes off after midnight in PE time, which is like beyond late. And they got spotlights. They have these girls come out with the horses. Like, it is a spectacle. And if you've never gone into it, check out my podcast too, because you'll probably want to get into it. So give it a shout out. Adam, buddy, you're wearing a White Rider jersey, man. I'm surprised that's not dirty from all the hard work you're doing today, buddy. Where can people find you?
Well, it's not dirty because I just put her on and finished washing it off here before I started the show. It's away week. I got to wear the white jersey. Anyways, you can find me at Adam Stewart 1 over on the Twitter. X, whatever they want to call it nowadays. Yeah, it's going to give it to you. Anyways, Press Bet, though, is head over to Instagram, Farmer in Saskatchewan. You can see a lot more stuff over there. I've always got videos or posts or things going on. Today it was just boring. I was just posting a grain auger, augering some wheat. Some people think that's fascinating. For me, it's just another day or Wednesday. So, yeah, lots of farm pictures, lots of harvest pictures coming. Going to get some rain here, looks like, for the next day or so. So, might be a little bit delayed, but always something fun going on. There's also the Theodore Super Swamper this weekend, which means that there is just a pile of red-colored guys running through a big mud pit. So that should be fun to watch. Lots of stuff going on over at my page. Ryan, where can guys find you, or what can they do to get a hold of you?
Yeah, well, first of all, are there betting odds on this running through the mud pit race?
I'm sure we can probably make some. Or Trey, you want to come and make us some odds?
I'll bring my whiteboard.
Sounds good.
Back in the day when they had chalkboards doing odds, man, I'd love that with my whiteboard. Let's go.
Hey, single race betting is allowed now in Saskatchewan. So, I mean, just bring it out. We can make some money on this, I think.
Well, perfect.
Let's go.
The way my CFL picks are going, we're not making money on there. So,
betting this year in general has been the worst. I don't get it.
I still say I think I'm leading, and that's not a good thing.
Side note, because we were talking about the whole Twitter and X renaming, I'm so sad. My phone died this week, and when it restarted, it updated things. Now I have the app. Now the app has changed, and now I'm just sad.
I went forever too with it still being Twitter. Everyone I knew had the X, and mine was still Twitter, and I don't know how. Because I'm on my phone 24/7. So
mine updated like right away, right to X, and I was like, oh, I don't like it. I want the bird.
Just bring it back. Just create a shortcut on your phone that has the old logo that points to the new one. That's an option. Anyways, I think that's pretty much everything for tonight. So whatever, thanks to everybody who joined us live. Thanks to everybody listening after the fact as well. Whatever podcast platform you are listening on, we appreciate it if you do all the fun things such as like, comment, subscribe, rate, review, share the show with your friends. Help us grow the show. We always appreciate that. On behalf of our panel here this evening, Adam and Trey, I'm Ryan saying thank you for listening. Take care. Have a good one. Bye.